Entre latinos, aquí todos conocemos los apagones. Bueno, bienvenidos todos. Gracias por estar aquí. El BTV Talks del mes de diciembre, el último del año. Y estoy súper honrado y súper feliz de haber invitado a Liliana, que nos viene a presentar, a hablar sobre B2B Sales. Liliana es peruana, la conocí en Nueva York, vive en Nueva York, tiene más de 20 años en roles de Business Development y Sales, Enterprise Sales. Creo que su rol más reciente fue en S&P, pero tiene bastante experiencia no solo en ventas en Estados Unidos, sino también en toda Latinoamérica. Entonces, con eso, por favor, demos la bienvenida y voy a ver si es que puedo empezar a presentar tus slides. Espera un ratito.
Perfecto, presentación, Fernando. Y bueno, gracias a todos por estar aquí en la última reunión del año. Me siento muy honrada. Y justamente como le estaba comentando a Fernando, si ven que estoy con muchas sombras, es porque acabamos aquí en Nueva York de tener un apagón. Y estoy acá con 3 lámparas con batería, así que por favor, ojalá que regrese la luz dentro de poco. ¿Me escuchan bien? Cualquier cosa, por favor, me dicen. Tengo acá el máximo de volumen. Perfecto, entonces estamos aquí. Básicamente la reunión es para hablar sobre las estrategias de ventas. Como les comentó Fernando, tengo más de 20 años de experiencia en ventas en todo tipo de compañías, S&Ps, S&P Global, Fortune 100. Y esta presentación, bueno, la tengo en inglés, la voy a presentar en inglés. Y luego voy a responder a las preguntas al final. Tengo un assignment para ustedes y también puedo responder a las preguntas en inglés y en español, como les conviene mejor, lo más apropiado. Okay, so we're going to switch now to English. So self-strategy solutions, personalizing and accelerating profitable growth. If you can just pass it on to the next slide, please. And there's a little bit about me, who I am. And as you can see here, I have an MBA from Cambridge University. I've been studying in many different aspects of sales and negotiations at Harvard Law, also Hofstra University in New York. Now, currently, I'm teaching global marketing strategies at FIT in New York. So I'm very passionate about sales and passionate about helping sales teams grow and performing. So at S&P, I had a dual role. I was a team lead, managing a team of people, and also I had my own quota. So I was in the top 1% of producers there, focused on B2B SaaS sales. So that's my specialty. So if you don't mind passing to the next slide. So the outline of this meeting would be what type of sales methodologies are there? What is diagnostic selling? I don't have access to my computer. So the next one would be, if you click, different phases of the diagnostic business development. Also, what do we do right now? So many companies and business are identifying the cost of the problem when you're discussing and having this conversation with your prospects and your clients, avoiding commoditization as well. And then also at the end, I'm going to show you how my team and myself creating annual sales territory planning based and using a value-based approach. So the next slide, please. So it's a brave new world, right? So here is the transactional selling. Sorry? Anybody said something, had a question? Okay, cool. So anything that, let me know. So in many years ago, in many different eras before, if you ran a search on Google, which I actually did for this presentation, and you put the name, for example, salesperson, the images that you get still to this day are of this sleazy person wearing a blue or a suit, trying to kind of persuade somebody. Still, that stereotype is still very up to date right now. It's still used because people are still very not trusting of salespeople. So, and if you, for both men and women, so you can see that I did a search in one of the slides as well, so you can actually see the self-conception of the stereotype of a salesperson. So, and not really knowing or not being trained enough on how to have these conversations, how to have consultative selling with our prospects. So it's been pretty much a transactional selling, a predatory selling about pushing and having conversations about pushing a product that sometimes the companies or prospects or clients don't even need. And that has exacerbated this bad reputation that salespeople have. So nowadays, it's all about seeing the situation through the customer's eyes and having conversations and collaborate together with your clients in order to create long-term relationships. And that's the only way. And this is, as I said before, I had 20 years of experience in sales. So I've done and I've tried every different, experimented with every different methodologies out there. So the one that I've had the most success with, and my teams as well, has been the diagnostic sales methodology, because it's about collaborating and working together and asking key questions in order to find out what the cost of the problem is, and if we have the solution for them. So that's why I have a picture here of something that could look one way or another. And so it's putting yourself in your customer's shoes and understanding and seeing from another perspective, right? Understanding what they're saying, truly grasping what they want, and honor their point of view as well. So if you don't mind passing to the next slide, please. Okay, trying to do the best here in this situation. Yeah, so this is actually from yesterday. Those are the Google searches that appear, some of them, is still to this day when you do a search and run a search for salesperson. And I think there are a couple more there. So you see, I don't really, if I see these people at the end of this dark alley, I might not go and buy something that they offer, right? Because there's something about them that doesn't inspire, trust. So yeah, so they're still to this day happening. The next slide, please. Right, so talking about the diagnostic approach, and here we're going to pause to reflect on this graph because it has a lot of information here. And we're also going to revisit this slide later, as we move along. But as you can see, the prospect on the top left-hand side of the page, contacting us, or either we contact them. So it's either going to be a cold calling or a warm cold where we're either reaching or they reach to us. They find us on the internet or they fill out a form and they come to us. And then many times, as you see, there are many steps that in the diagnostic approach we have to go through before even we go on a presentation or a demo mode. And that's very important because you can't just go from the moment that they're contacting you or you're contacting them into showing or assaulting them with information about your product because you don't really know exactly how you can help them. You could, and it's much better to actually find out and asking certain questions in order also to adapt your presentation. Maybe you have a platform that offers many times 20 minutes to 30 minutes, sometimes an hour the most, where you have that very, very valuable time with this prospect. So if you start going one by one and you go here and you have your checklist of all the points where you have to go, you are just focusing more on yourself as opposed to focusing on what's important to them. And what happens is that every other salesperson out there is doing the same thing. So in the end, you're commoditizing yourself. So you cannot blame your client when they commoditize you because you're doing it to them. So the idea here is certain question, finding out whether KPIs are, who's in charge or who actually is having these problems. Why are they actually needing to change? It's a good question. It's starting with the why. What is it that prompted them to have this change? Or what are they actually using right now? Are they using anything? Is it the status quo? Maybe they're not doing anything about it, or maybe they're visiting many trade shows to find clients, or they trying to save money by saving money by finding different suppliers or diversifying their supply chain, or what is the problem? So this is something that you start putting it together, kind of like when you're going to a doctor, and the doctor, the first thing that they're seeing you is not saying, you have diabetes or you have cancer, without actually doing the whole process of diagnosing you and finding out and discovering what exactly is happening with you. So it would be very unprofessional for the doctor to come in and just, tell you what if you're sick, without actually having those conversations and questions and working with you on a health plan to identify if you actually need something, if you're sick or if you need something. Okay, so if you don't mind passing, going to the next slide, please. Oh, Fernando, oh, perfect. So a major challenge today is complex sales in a multicultural business relationship. So we're talking about here sales that are so complex, that are not the MVP. They're not something that you can, clients can just buy on your platform without the need or the assistance of a salesperson. We're talking about complex sales when the actual client or prospect needs and requires the assistance of an outside expertise of a salesperson to actually make a decision, because it is very complex and they have no idea about our products, and they need explanation, they need hand holding. So otherwise it would be, if it's something that you're selling, for example, that is selling on its own automatically on your website, maybe just like freemium or a package that you're selling for $500 or $300, something that they can buy on their own. This is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about here, annual and multi-year deals, large deals with corporations that need your help in order to make those decisions, whether or not they need your product or not. So for that is the diagnostic sales methodology. So where you diagnose the situation, the pain, you quantify the pain, design a solution together, and then deliver the results and track the metrics and track the results work for the client or not. If you, any questions so far? Perfect. So two different approaches, right? So very, very different approaches. One is the value proposition and one is the value hypothesis. So in the past, I've been guilty of that in previous eras of sales, when it's all about, our sales and our clients saying we are best, our products are helping all these companies, so it's all about you and you and you. So the focus there for the value proposition is more on the vendor, on the product, on the solution, on the features. The mode is presentation. The mode is demoing as soon as possible. And then the stance is of certainty. So it's like, I can help you without really knowing if you could. And then the tone is very confrontational as well, because as soon as the client says, oh, but is asking certain questions, sometimes we get confrontational. And the effect is decreases trust, as opposed to a value hypothesis. And here is many times as a salesperson, you can start asking questions and working together with the prospect and say, instead of saying, we can help you, we have the solution for you, you can say, kind of like when you're working with a friend, or a family member, you could say, I think our solution can help you. We still need to run some more questions, but I believe that based on similar companies that we've worked with in your industry, we were able to help, and we want to see if we can do the same here for you. So which one would instill you more trust in having a conversation with someone who you believe that has your best interests at heart, right? So here, for example, the focus is on the customer, on the business and the value. The mode is more of a conversation. The stance is a hypothesis. I'm not certain we can help you yet, but we want to find out if we can. So it's a collaborative tone, and the effect is that it helps build trust. Next slide, please. Right. So in medicine, as I mentioned before with doctors, this is called the life effect questionnaire. So what would your life look like if you didn't have this pain? So start, having these conversations with this patient or client, because these two questions here could be applied to anything, not just in medicine, right? So what would your life or your business look like if you didn't have this pain or this issue? What is preventing you from doing something about it? So once you ask those open-ended questions, sequential questions, you start understanding. For example, the second question could prompt an answer saying, well, I have to discuss it with my boss, with my manager, with procurement. So you start gaining more intel about who are the cast of characters in order to make this decision. But not just because you want to push, again, but because you just want to gather the information and run the discovery stage. So next slide, please.
Pues, se cayó, ¿no?
Super.
Ya. Puedes poner pausa a la grabación. Me la busco.
¿Podemos continuar?
Sí.
Okay. I think there was a slide before then. There were a graph with error 3, 1, and 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One before? I mean, I can jump in this one too. So what we were discussing, yes, perfect. The 3 eras of professional selling. So the era that was before, I just don't want to go over too much on this, but as we discussed, so the sales script, the presentation, the closing, the persuader, and that was basically what started that stereotypical salesperson and that image that we still have to today. Questions and need analysis, that's era 2, listening, trust building, problem solver. So in the 70s, the mid 70s, that's when the need of the market to try to change this bad stereotypical image. So they started talking more about consultative selling, right? Problem solver. So the salesperson coming in as the hero, we're going to try to fix all the problems, we're going to be creating a bespoke proposal for you. The issue with this era, which is nothing wrong with having a consultative selling, is that sometimes you act more as a consultant to your clients. And what happens is, as many times as it happened to me and many other salespeople, they actually, the clients before signing, they use you as a consultant and they use you to help them solve the problem, and then they walk away. And then they don't need to buy anything anymore, right? So that's happened. So there's a risk here, and that you gotta be just aware that you are trying to help them and you're trying to work with them, co-collaborating on a solution, but you're not working for them. You're not being their consultant, giving them all the answer necessarily, right? So you still want to keep something to say, you know, we want to try to work together. And this is based on our discovery that we believe that you can gain, you know, this much in return on investment based on our solution. But you're not, so you're delivering, you know, all of your findings, but you're not giving them the whole information, right? So the next slide, please. So era 3 is more about positioning yourself as a source of business advantage than just a consultant, okay? And the symptoms of era 1 and 2 approach, many times it happens, long sales cycles, volatile forecasts. Sometimes it happens and you have a really good quarter, and sometimes you don't, so you're not able to track and necessarily increase cost of sales because you're chasing after those clients that, you know, they take very long time to close. Sometimes you're going above and beyond the cost of sales, visiting them or traveling overseas or going to different trade shows. So, and not really closing. So that's what happens, losing to competitors with less value. So after you've convinced them that they actually need your solutions, or you convince them that they need to change, now they start shopping around for just, you know, commoditizing you and your business, and just, oh, you know, I can go to your competitor and get it for less. And then they come back to you saying, you know, your competitor is giving us $20,000 less. What can you do for me? And then they go back, you know, so that you don't want to get into those transactional conversations, because that means that either that client didn't get your value, or they're actually not a good client to have in the long run. And that's when you have to make the decision, do I really want to work with that person? And in, you know, I think that in 1 year or so, sometimes I have to have those conversations, maybe happens 2 per year, where I can actually say to somebody or a company and say, you know what, you're not ready for us right now, or based on our findings, we don't see that you need the solution. And when you do that, you're just being honest with yourself, honest with them. And what happens is that earned respect, because many times it happened that company has come back to me 6 months later when they were actually ready, or they refer someone else who they think that that company is ready, right? So that's how you start building your credibility and respect. Yes, if you can move to the next slide, please. Great. So challenges in the decision, challenges for the era 3. Customers typically don't have a thorough cross-functional and objective process for making the types of decisions that you're asking them to make. And that's actually, for complex sale, is very, very common. So many times companies, because they're very large and they are working you're speaking maybe to someone in one department, and maybe they're working in silos, which happens many times. They have an idea that they need to change, but they don't really know exactly what, or they don't know how big the problem is. And maybe they need to have the solution across the board to a bigger extent. So sometimes they don't even know as much. They maybe know 40% of what the actual cost of the problem is. So just to have that in mind and be aware that when you're having this conversation, the customer doesn't always know. So that's why you're finding things together, not just asking them and they don't have all the answers. That's what I'm trying to say. The second challenge is change. So buying involves changing, and changing is painful for everybody, for all humans, right? So the customer will not change unless the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. So they will not change unless the pain of staying the same is very clearly greater than the pain of changing. So that is very important to know, because people ideally, so sometimes you present all of the solutions and you work together and you follow the steps of the diagnosis. But then at the end, maybe they say, you know what, maybe your competitor will be the status quo, or for them not making any decision at all, because maybe they come back and say, you know what, I actually have to hire somebody from the outside to take care of just handle your system or your solution, and we're not there yet. Or, you know what, it wasn't that much of a need that we needed this solution. So just be aware that you can very clearly identify your value, and to create and saying, the opportunity cost is so great that you have to make this change. And this goes for anything, right? In life, with relationships, with anything. So the value, the customer is enabled to recognize and quantify the unique value at risk in the current situation, or your solution's impact on that risk, and is enabled to measure the value achieved with your solution. So that's also something that you have to go back to the drawing board and have this conversation again, if the value hasn't been really clearly defined. Okay, so the next slide, please. So like I mentioned before, so sometimes the area of comprehension from a client's point of view is just very minimal. And this happened many, many times. And many times the salesperson who has been dealing, or we have conversations with many different companies, in a week, we could very easily have 100 different conversations with 100 companies. So we start hearing and we start gathering all this data that is very, very important, because now we have information sometimes that is more varied than the actual company that is working alone in their own problems, right? So just understand and be aware that many times their comprehension about their own problem is minimal. It could be, 60%, 40%. So you cannot just go in presentation mode without actually having those conversations before then. Now you're going to say, perhaps, you know what, that all sounds really great, but what if the company contacts me and they just say, you know what, I don't want to talk about all of this. Don't ask me questions. Just show me the price, right? I'm sure you've had these clients or prospects that they say, I don't ask me so many questions. Just give me the information that I'm asking. I just want to know your price. And I'll just, if I don't like it, I'll walk away. So again, you have to be always in control of this conversation. Oh, somebody actually, I don't know if someone has tried to send me a text. Fernando, I'm going to put you like if somebody wants to raise their hands, let me know, because I cannot see, I only see you. So as a salesperson, as a professional salesperson, you need to be in control and rein in the conversation if it's going too much into the commoditization mode. So you can say, you know what, I would love to give you a price, but I still need to find out more information about your company, because I cannot just give you something that might be maybe more than you actually need. So then start asking those questions respectfully, to be able to then at the end say, the more information I can get and gather about your issue and your pain and your problem, the more personalized the proposal can be. Because I don't want to perhaps sell you, the whole house, but I just want to sell you certain specific things that are relevant to you, Mr. Customer. Okay? So the progression to change from low probability of change to high probability of change, and that's the journey. Then you start asking and diagnosing and taking them and making them understand that, yes, maybe I need to change, maybe I'm losing too much money because I don't have your solution, or maybe this is the way to save for me by having your solution. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah, so positive, present, abstaining. So you want to take them in a journey to really understand if they actually have the need, to the positive future, which is attaining, which could go either way, right? It could go to avoidance or it could go to change, but going from abstaining to attaining. Next slide, please. And I don't know how we are in time. So value leakage here. So it could happen with any different industries. The findings is that we all, companies sometimes go to market without a value clarity. So less than 10% of their value was quantified with a dollar amount and the customer believes. So the quantified value and the unquantified value, it can happen in any industry, software, SaaS, medical devices, etc. And the next slide can show it as well. Yeah, so these are actual cases that's happened with clients when, after going through the diagnostic methodology, the client came in thinking that their ROI, say for the ERP software, would be $310,000, when in fact, after going through the diagnostic methodology, we identified that the problem would be $3.2 million. So having these conversations is key in order to really identify and use and provide a value-based solution and proposal and pricing. Okay, so I guess there are not many questions, so we can go to the next slide. The challenge of value as well, so product, process, and performance, total value return, so what the client thinks that their value would be, the return on the value, and what it could actually be once they identify all of these problems. The next slide. So to get paid for the value you create, your customers must believe that they will receive that value. And if you commoditize your clients, they will commoditize you, is something that we discussed. So for this, the development, so discovery, diagnosing, designing, and delivering. So the 4 stages of the diagnostic methodology. So the discovery would be preparing, engaging, asking certain questions that are about finding out and quantifying as much as possible what the cost of the problem is. The diagnosis would be identifying as well as quantifying here together, asking certain questions. And, one question could be, what are you currently using right now? If they tell you, for instance, well, we have already 3 people that are working on this, you could ask, or you can maybe, based on your knowledge, understand that those people in that certain market maybe are making around, I don't know, $100,000 a year. So 2 people that are working on this, you can ask further and say how many hours a week or a month these 2 people are taking to take care of this problem. So then they tell you from there. And then you start, it's not going to be exact, but at least you can have a benchmark, and you start creating a map where you start putting all of these answers and then having a dollar amount next to it, just sort of as a benchmark, and it's an approximate, right? So if 2 people that are making this amount of money a year are spending 20 hours a week on this project, so how much would that cost? An idea of, or maybe in order to get the solution that you can provide them and save them a lot of money, right now they have to visit 4 trade shows a year in Las Vegas. So you can quantify those trips as well. So if they're having a booth, for example, 10 by 10, approximately a 10 by 10 booth would be $5,000 per show. So now they're spending $20,000 per show just on that booth, plus hotel expenses, food, and those salaries also, and those hours of those people that are going and how many are going. So you start creating this process of quantification of the problem. So if this client, oh yeah, we got the light. Finally. Yeah, so by having your solution, they are able to save themselves not having to visit those trade shows. Then you'll be saving approximately $100,000 a year by saving time and money going there. So then your solution then will appear for them something available, so cheaper if you quote them, for example, $80,000, depending on how you want to create a proposal for them for pricing. So that is the whole idea, is being very aware and mindful about the quantification of the pain, because that's going to help you then bring your point that they actually are spending so much, an approximate, and then your solution is going to appear very inexpensive. And the value that you're creating and achieving would be much better. So any questions? Okay, so another thing would be also to having them test a free trial of your solution so that they can actually identify if the solution would be helpful for them. Now, there are certain B2B SaaS programs that you need to be careful. They're not all the same. Some of them, they have certain things where you can actually enter and start getting a trial, and then you gain all the information that you needed. So for them, you have to set certain parameters about the free trials. But there are others that you can have them on a trial for a day or 3 days or 7 days, depending, so that they can actually see and get a feel with your support, so they can actually understand that this solution will be good and that it will provide them value. The next, yes, go ahead.
Tenemos una pregunta de Rodrigo.
Sure, yes, please.
¿Cómo estás? ¿Lo hago en español o en inglés para efectos de la
Como tú quieras, sí, en español o en inglés.
Perfecto.
Sí,
Muchas gracias por lo que compartes. Mira, tengo una pregunta y está relacionada más que nada al punto anterior que estás mencionando también. Lo que me he topado yo bastante es que cuando tienes ciclos de ventas muy largos, ¿verdad? Y parte del proceso de compra del producto es hacer pilotos, ¿sí? ¿Qué es lo más eficiente hacer? ¿Hacer pilotos cortos para que el cliente vea la eficiencia o velocidad a la que puede trabajar con impacto? ¿O es mantenerlos utilizando el producto a lo largo del ciclo de venta para que estén engaged con el producto también? ¿Me explico? ¿Qué crees tú que es más táctico?
La respuesta es depende, porque tú conoces al cliente, tú te das cuenta más o menos cuando ya estás lidiando con el cliente, qué tipo de cliente es, si le tienes más confianza, si es digamos, también el tipo de compañía, ¿no? Hay compañías, por ejemplo, que he lidiado con gobiernos, con universidades, que necesitan, ellos mismos te dicen, ¿no? Y eso es algo que tú puedes preguntar, going back to la colaboración, preguntarles más o menos el tiempo que necesitan. Yo siempre cuando hago esa pregunta digo, por ejemplo, ¿cuánto tiempo lo necesitan? Depende de cómo lo quieres el anchoring. Si le dices, por ejemplo, necesitas por 3 días o 7 días o más, ¿no? Entonces, si le dices así, te van a decir en días, pero si le dices, por ejemplo, lo necesitas por todo un trimestre o un año, ¿no? Te lo van a decir también más tiempo. Entonces, depende de qué tipo de empresa. Si es una empresa pequeña, que tú desees el precio que les vas a dar o la necesidad no es tan alta, entonces puedes cerrarlo un poquito más, acortar el sales cycle y decir, bueno, te voy a dar 24 horas o 48 horas para que lo pruebes, y mientras tanto yo voy a estar ahí detrás apoyándote, cualquier pregunta que tengas. O lo mejor también es decirle, mira, podemos abrirlo, pero yo quiero darte nuevamente a ti y a tu equipo otra demostración para que tengan refresher, ¿no? Como un refresher para que más o menos sepan ellos dónde ir cuando estén solos. Y también te pueden mandar un correo a cualquier pregunta. Entonces, depende del tipo de compañía, depende digamos, si es una empresa que ya te dijo, bueno, vamos a cerrar en un mes, ¿no? Porque tenemos que tener todos esos approvals. Entonces les puedes dar tal vez por más tiempo porque necesitan tal vez añadir a otros miembros de la empresa para que también lo puedan ver. Y es algo también que quiero, gracias por la pregunta, porque cuando vas a añadir una persona nueva, es bueno nuevamente hacer una demostración, porque lo que no quieres es que esa persona entre y está completamente perdida, ¿no? Y entonces ahí tiene muchas preguntas y no sabe a dónde ir. O el champion dentro de la compañía, que es la persona que quiere hacer el cambio y que está tratando de convencer a los demás para que compren, tú le puedes a esa persona dar la demostración y asegurarte que esa persona sepa responder a las preguntas de los demás, ¿no? Para que también esa persona tenga un skin in the game y te pueda ayudar internamente a venderlo ahí, ¿no? No sé si te respondí tu pregunta.
Sí, sí me respondiste. Y si puedo hacer una pregunta para hacer solo doble clic en un tema. Suponiendo que todo eso está yendo como tú dices, ¿verdad? Y hiciste y terminaste tu piloto y fue exitoso, digamos, en 2 meses, ¿sí? Pero el ciclo de ventas, naturalmente, de, por ejemplo, 6 meses de hasta cerrar una venta, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo mantienes tú el engage el cliente una vez que ya terminaron el piloto y fue, digamos, exitoso, pero se demoran tanto tiempo más en tomar una decisión hasta que tú puedas saber si es que se va a cerrar o no finalmente?
Claro, yo lo que diría, ¿por qué te va a tomar? Digamos, tú ya sabes que esa empresa va a cerrar en 6 meses, ya te lo han dicho, debido a sus protocolos internos o algo así, o
No,
no.
digo por entender más o menos cuánto se demoran ellos en tomar una decisión, ¿correcto? Pero cuando un piloto es rápido, el tiempo, digamos, si no estás comunicándote continuamente, el cliente se enfría, por decirlo así. Entonces, ¿cómo
Claro,
deberías
claro.
mantenerte en contacto
Yo lo que
para ese
diría
Sam?
es nuevamente tener control de la situación, tener control de la comunicación, de la conversación y decirles, bueno, si tú no estás listo para cerrar este contrato ahora y crees que lo vas a cerrar en 6 meses, es mejor que hablemos después y hagamos ese trial después cuando ya esté seguro de que eso se va a cerrar más cercamente. Porque
Mm,
si hacemos ese trial ahora, después en 4 o 5 meses te vas a olvidar y no va a haber, o sea, no va a ser tan poderoso ese trial, ¿no? Entonces es mejor, si ellos no están seguros que van a cerrar pronto, entonces let's revisit then. Y mientras tanto, digamos que mantienes la comunicación. Cada semana les mandas un correo con información de su industria o un reporte que ha salido de algo. Constantemente ellos tienen que ver que estás ahí mandando información, no pidiendo, no mandando correos diciendo, ¿y cómo está? ¿Y cómo está esto? ¿Y vas a cerrar o no? Sino mandando información continuamente. O tal vez le dices, mira, ha habido otra empresa en tu industria que acaba de cerrar y ya se han beneficiado con nuestros servicios. Solamente quería saludarte, ¿no? Nada más así, no empujar, pero constantemente, ¿no? Hasta que cuando ya estén listos, entonces ahí empiezas nuevamente y con la venta y con la prueba.
súper. Muchas gracias.
Gracias por la pregunta. ¿Alguien más no se veía alguna manito ahí? A
Liliana.
ver, sí, ¿qué tal?
Hola, ¿qué tal? Muchas gracias. Mi pregunta va a ser en inglés, si está bien.
Sí.
I'm the founder of Modi, so we actually specialize in AI technology for apparel brands. And so thank you so much for sharing your advice. I really like the approach of a cold outreach being more inquiring if our solution can help them rather than just telling them. We've definitely seen a higher response rate using that type of approach. My question is more around email, in an environment for example, when we're um, um, communicating with Latam brands, like a lot of them are actually not on LinkedIn, the decision makers, at least for those brands. I don't know if you have any specific advice around email, specifically more so for the subject line, because I think in an environment where potential clients are inundated with sales messaging per email, I was just wondering if you had any advice around that.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. And I actually have a sample of a diagnostic sort of outreach. In one of the slides, I don't know if it's the next one, Fernando. Oh, no. So go back. No, keep going. There's a sample, because it's very important, especially you're just basically cold calling them, right, by email. Yes, here. So the value go one before. So this is an example of a real life company, and they actually sent an email like this. So all about was like assault. You know, this is a value proposition. This is what we do. We deliver smarter tank gauging systems, more reliable, blah, 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 cost-effective vapor recovery. So they're in love with themselves. So with our unsurpassed industry expertise and breadth of products. So it's all about them, right? So this is an email that they send out. And if you send out an email like that, it's great. I mean, you are promoting yourself. You know, I guess you're like have self-confidence. But the next slide is more about the value hypotheses. And this is, you know, we're talking about another industry that is not fashion, but you see the difference now. So if you send an email like this, I work with senior executives in retail petroleum who have found themselves wrestling with the expense of upgrading to electronic fuel monitoring systems. As I look across those businesses, their current analog system had them at risk for 14 to 18% in excess operating costs and as much as 1 to 1.5% in potential revenue. I'm not sure if this is the case. Again, you are just hypothesizing, right? You're not telling them, this is your case, you need this. I'm not sure if this is the case with your business, but as I think about your 36 locations and last year's average revenue of 4.3 million per site, Gas and Go could be exposed to somewhere in the range of this and that. So I'm wondering, based on this level of possible impact compared to other issues you're dealing with, would it make sense for us to explore this further to see to what degree these numbers might hold true or not for you? So you've done your homework. Even if those numbers are completely off, at least somebody can say, you know what? Maybe there's an opportunity to talk to this person, or maybe they are actually, you know, wrestling and dealing with these issues. So there is more about them here, right? So if you're going to send a cold email, you decide who you're going to go after, right? You decide what companies you're going to put in your pipeline, and you're deciding and you're being aware of why you're picking those companies, because you think that those companies might need your services, but you're not completely sure. So what can you offer those companies with your services? Just think about that. And in the state and age in the fashion industry, there's a lot of issues going on. So maybe if you can quantify some of those issues and add them to your email and making them more about them. And it's not a guarantee, but I think the conversation is going to be a lot different than just talking about your company or yourself.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Ronald.
Hola Liliana, ¿cómo estás? Gracias
¿Qué
por
tal?
tu información.
No, gracias.
Tengo una pregunta. ¿Cuál
Sí.
sería, nos puedes compartir, más que una pregunta, es una petición, nos podrías compartir algunos tips, consejos sobre el proceso de closing? Bien, en una slide vi que ponías que una de las cosas que señales de que estás como en la vieja escuela de las ventas, es que tenías un forecast volátil, ¿no? Hoy en día muchos clientes practican el silencio, no te contestan, te dejan ahí como largos espacios donde no sabes realmente si estás cerca o no del proceso de closing. Y no sé qué estrategias aplicas tú en ese punto para llegar a ese momento donde descartas a ese lead y sigues al siguiente, o le sigues intentando tiempo para ver si logras cerrar.
Sí, es una buena pregunta. Bueno, las compañías que ya, digamos, ya les hiciste la presentación, tal vez en la era 1 y 2, ¿no? Porque todavía no se ha implementado la era 3, solo el diagnóstico. Tal vez esas compañías que están haciendo el ghosting no han entendido bien el valor que le puedes proporcionar tanto durante, si es que toman tu servicio o después, ¿no? Entonces, no quieren decirte que no quieren perder la cara y no te responden, es más fácil para ellos, ¿no? Pero entonces no ha habido ese value hypothesis con ellos. No se ha identificado si de verdad necesitan tu ayuda o que si puedes tú proporcionarle valor. Entonces, con esas empresas, lo que tienes que hacer ahora es tal vez crear un correo como este, digamos algo que ahora para retomar la conversación de una manera más diagnóstica, ¿no? Puedes tal vez, o si ya los has perdido, digamos, no se pudo establecer el valor, continúa entonces con nuevos, ¿no? Borrón y cuenta nueva, y ya con las próximas empieza a tener ese tipo de conversaciones que son más colaborativas, ¿no? Entonces ya cuando se deciden entre tú y ellos que sí hay una necesidad de tu producto, entonces ahí es mucho más fácil decir, bueno, entonces ellos mismos te van a decir, mira, sí, hemos identificado, necesitamos envíame el contrato, o tú le puedes preguntar, bueno, entonces si necesitan, les puedo enviar el contrato ahora para firmarlo. Entonces ahí sí hay un diálogo, ¿no? Digamos, si quieres que te dé algunos tips, muchas veces, a veces se puedes enviar un correo diciendo, bueno, ya les he mandado muchos correos y he visto, y mi razón de ser, o sea, mi objetivo no es molestarles, sino quiero nada más saber y ver si necesitan nuestra solución. Y si no la necesitan, no hay problema alguno. Podemos retomar esa conversación después o el próximo año, ¿no? Entonces, y sigue enviándoles información válida para ellos. No solamente les escribas cuando quieras pedirles un contrato, sino ya que los pusiste en el back burner, continúa enviándoles newsletters, reportes, cosas que les pueda ayudar, porque muchas veces cuando los tengo yo, digamos, en mi base de datos y les envío los newsletters, a veces en 2 meses se aparecen nuevamente, ¿no? Ahora sí estamos listos. Y gracias por enviarnos esos reportes que sí lo hemos leído o que sí nos ha servido. Entonces, no, digamos, no, don't give up on them. ¿Qué otra pregunta? No sé si te respondí tu pregunta, sí.
Sí.
Ok, ¿alguna otra pregunta por ahí? Tenemos, bueno, en las próximas slides que tenemos, yo sé que hubo un poco de hiccups, les he puesto como la próxima, que es el Territory Plan. Esto es, por ejemplo, también cuando ingresan en Salesforce, en la parte de los stages de diagnóstico, qué es lo que se debe de poner después de haber tenido esas conversaciones, ¿no? Si es nivel 1, 2, 3, hasta el final, que es el contracting. Pero, por ejemplo, cuando ves el 2, Client Engage, significa que ya has tenido esa llamada o esa llamada diagnóstica y que ya la solución y el fit se ha establecido. Entonces, eso es más o menos como un cheat sheet. Ahora, si lo puedes pasar, y hay una parte del territory. Keep going. Territory planning. So we don't have a lot of time, but this is actually very helpful, because when you start creating your new territory plan for yourself and your sales reps, you need to be very mindful of what you're doing. And if you go to the next slide, you need to be very strategic and mindful. Next one. Guess I was very ambitious. Keep going. Yeah, so not all the clients are the same, right? These two people are the same age, they speak English, but they're completely different. So you have to start identifying and, creating your buyer personas. And that's something that you work with marketing to create those marketing collaterals based on industries and buyer personas. If you keep going, there's an assignment that I left for you guys. Keep going. What is your goal? So when you are creating your territory goals and your territory for sales, you gotta be very mindful and also make it personal. So say, for example, I want to sell this much because I'm interested in buying a house. I put in a down payment for a house, or I want to be in the president's circle. So these are things that you create your own goals for yourself. Like in anything in life, you create your goals so that gives you, visibility, kind of manifesting. And then if you go next, there's an assignment there. Keep going. Go next. This one. So this is before them. Okay. So I don't know if you want to take a picture here, but this is actually, that's helped me a lot in all of my territory planning presentations, because this is something that you're going to present in front of your team and your managers or your sales team, when you're going to review everything that happened in the last year or at this present year, now that we're mid-December, and you're going to analyze and see some pattern recognition for companies. Which ones are your biggest wins? What happened? How you can replicate? What can you avoid? And all of that, you're going to write it down. And then you're going to help yourself with the use of the 2023 close won, close lost opportunities, and your activity report from Salesforce or any other CRM that you're using. And when you're creating the planning for next year, you're also gonna, what are the tactics that you need to accomplish each day of to be successful this year? How many calls, how many demos, how many emails do you have to send? If you're, say, you want to make a salary of X, how many opportunities do you need to create in the pipeline, right? So if you want to say, want to make, I don't know, 300,000, you want to create an opportunity pipeline of $2 million in order to close, in order to make something that you want. So you create set your goal and work backwards. What activities that you need to do in order to open 100 new opportunities a month. So all of that, you need to write it down, and then each of you will present it in a PowerPoint or Prezi in front of the whole team. And that will set that's your brújula, no? Te va a dar your north on what to do next. Because it's not something that it's not an art, it's a science. You want to make it a science. You want to create results that are expected because you went and you had a strategy and tactics that go behind it. So I don't know if I also, if anybody has any questions or if I answered your question there.
Bueno, estamos sobre el tiempo. Muchas gracias, Liliana. Pero si tienes unos minutitos más, veamos si es que hay más preguntas.
Claro que sí. Aquí estoy.
Nancy Lozano. ¿Puedes decir también de qué startup eres, Nancy?
Hola, claro, yo soy de la startup Altscore. Bien, quisiera hacer una preguntita por ahí. Con respecto a Enterprise Sales, ¿cuál es la metodología de calificación que recomiendas? Existen varias, por ejemplo, el MEDPIC, SPIN, no sé, pero enfocado a Enterprise, ¿tú usas alguna?
De la metodología para identificar las compañías que son mejores para ti, para tu empresa.
No, las estrategias para por ejemplo, para un discovery call, ¿cuáles son las métricas? Por ejemplo, el MEDPIC, que son métricas, Economic Buyer, Champion, cómo identificar, como cuáles, no sé si utilizas alguna de esas metodologías. Por ejemplo, hay una que se llama MEDPIC, otra que se llama SPIN, otra se llama BAND. ¿O qué metodología tú utilizas para poder en el discovery call, aparte de hacer el engagement, como calificar qué tan caliente está tu prospecto?
Claro, ahí no sé si viste que había puesto como un cheat sheet anteriormente. Yo uso la metodología diagnóstica, que es el Diagnostic Selling methodology. Esa es la metodología que utilizo, ¿no? Entonces, cuando hago, por ejemplo, el discovery call, perdona, te estoy hablando, ¿está bien que se te hable en inglés?
Está bien, cualquier idioma.
Ok, perfecto. Bueno, sí, cuando hago el discovery call, ahí es donde, por ejemplo, si es con la persona que estás hablando, que tanto te ha contactado o tú los has contactado a ellos, ¿hay alguna razón porque si ellos se contactaron, cuál es la razón que te contactaron, ¿no? Y si tú los contactas a ellos, más o menos tú tienes un why, por qué los contactaste, tal vez utilizaste LinkedIn y viste que, bueno, esta persona o esta compañía se puede beneficiar de nuestros servicios. Y luego ya cuando haces ese discovery call, tal vez esa no es la persona que con quien deberías conversar. Puedes pedir que te presente a otra persona de otra área o tal vez dentro de esa área, pero tal vez en otro puesto. Pero entonces ahí en el mismo Salesforce yo cambio, digamos, pongo ahí no está interesado o very interested, depende. El mismo Salesforce tiene esos esos estatus, ¿no? Que uno puede ingresar ahí para que pero bueno, si tú usas otra metodología, con tal que toda tu compañía y tu departamento de ventas sepan y todos estén on the same page, está bien, ¿no? Yo no uso las que has mencionado, porque utilizamos Salesforce y Diagnostic. Pero si tú usas una de esas, con tal que todo el mundo sepa de lo que están hablando, ¿no? Para que nada, digamos, si hay 10 vendedores y 5 usan uno y otros usan otro, todos tienen que estar on the same page.
Claro, pero está bien conocer una nueva metodología, la voy a estudiar, esta que tú utilizas, porque seguramente funciona muy bien por la gran trayectoria que tienes. Muchas gracias.
No, gracias a ti. Y te digo aquí, porque tampoco les estoy tratando de vender esa metodología, ¿no? Estoy tratando de, digamos, compartir para que ustedes, depende de qué tipo de negocio puede o les pueda utilizar o no. O tal vez otra cosa como experimentar. No, digamos, diciendo, esta es la mejor y usen esto, ¿no? Sino experimenten, vean, pruébenlo y luego vean si les da buen resultado, que me imagino para nosotros sí, pero tal vez en su negocio es diferente. La idea, no sé si puedes ver, yo creo que alguna gente ya se ha ido, pero yo tengo unos minutos más si alguien tiene otras preguntas.
No, al parecer no.
Ok, perfecto.
Bueno, Liliana, me alegro que haya vuelto la luz. Gracias por tu charla, súper interesante. También creo que, bueno, vamos a compartir la presentación y ahí has dejado tu WhatsApp y tu email. Conversamos antes de que estarías dispuesta a ser mentora de alguien. Si tienen preguntas fuera de esto y quiere reunirse contigo, te puede contactar. Y entonces, bueno, muchísimas gracias de nuevo.
Gracias por la paciencia y bueno, ha sido un placer y un gusto verlos a todos y bueno, gracias. Que les vaya muy bien.
Ya.